compound lifts are the fundamental of any good strength training program. But with that statement so obvious, why are so few people doing them? When I started out lifting weights over 10 years ago, I got distracted by the sheer volume of machines in every gym and huge variety of different exercises I saw most people doing. And I made one fatal mistake. I thought I needed to do them too. After years of stagnating progress, I decided to strip back and simplify my training. In only a few years, I went from a skinny teenager who might have been blown away in a stiff wind to a powerlifting champion. And it was all much simpler than you think. I'd managed to refocus my training on the only principle that really mattered. Compounds are king. So why are compounds king? Well, these movements use multiple muscle groups all at once to move a weight from A to B. You're therefore able to lift heavier weights per repetition when compared with isolation movements, which only focus on a single muscle group at a time. Not only does this mean you're getting more work in with each rep and spending less time in the gym, it also means these exercises are far more functional and are likely to carry over significant benefits to other aspects of your life, which is a topic I'll come back to at the end. But by using only a handful of these exercises, which can broadly be split into pushing, pulling and squatting movements, over 4 years, I was able to lift these personal bests in competition. And even now, as someone who runs up to 30 miles a week, they're still the pillar of my strength training. And I'll get to that too. But first of all, how exactly did I go from being this skinny teenager in 2015 to this frankly toned beefcake winning his weight class in 2019? And why had I decided to make this radical shift? Unlike a lot of people, I wasn't completely neglecting compound lifts beforehand. It's just they weren't my focus. They were one of many exercises I perform each workout for a body part. I drift through sessions, making up my program on the fly, and spreading a thin amount of effort over a large number of exercises and reps. I thought that to get bigger and stronger, like the professional bodybuilders I used to watch on YouTube, you needed to be doing 5+ different exercises per body part. But when I went to university in 2015 and came across powerlifting, I was sold. These powerlifters were consistently the strongest people in the gym, but they were basically just doing squats, bench press and deadlifts. So that's what I did. Instead of a leg day, I just did squats. Instead of a chest or a shoulders day, I just did bench or overhead press. And instead of a back day, I switched to deadlifts and either pull-ups or barbell rows afterwards. I was now concentrating my efforts on a small number of exercises, and therefore able to perform them with intensity and focus. I started planning my workouts so that I could track my volume and ensure I was progressively overloading my muscles with time. The majority of my sessions would involve lifting between 60 and 80% at my 1 rep max, with rep ranges between 4 and 8. I might start off with 4 sets of 8 reps at 60% and add 2.5 kilos each session for a few weeks. After a while I might add an extra set or a variation of the lift at the end. When I get to the point that I was close to failure, after the last rep of the last set, the next session I'd reset and start again. But this time maybe with 4 sets of 6 reps, starting heavier at 65%. This approach is called linear progression. I regularly plan deloads where I temporarily reduce my volume for a week to allow my body to recover and soft tissues to catch up with what I was asking of them. If I wanted to test my new strength, I'd increase my intensity closer to my max for a period and work at lower rep ranges and build towards this effort. This is called peaking. After each cycle, I'd rinse and repeat, hopefully with a new 1 rep max to build my percentages off. This method is just an organised way of ensuring progressive overload where the majority of your effort is sub-maximal, i.e. not to failure. Working a bicep curl to failure each week was fine. Consistently doing the same when I had several hundred pounds in my back in a squat, less good. Within a few months of training this way, alongside consistently eating a caloric surplus, my strength exploded and I was gaining muscle at a significant rate. And I'd gone from that 175-pound skinny teenager to a 205-pound powerlifting bruiser. What was happening? Well, as compound lifts use several different muscle groups all at once, generally moving heavier weights through a full range of movement, each rep is contributing more to your total volume than an equivalent isolation exercise. A back squat not only trains your quads like a leg extension might, it's using your glutes, your hamstrings, your core, and your upper and lower back muscles. Because these compound lifts recruit more muscle fibers in one go, your body releases more natural anabolic and growth hormones. This is one of the key reasons compound lifts are so overpowered when it comes to building strength and muscle mass. And because I dropped all the extra exercises, I was able to bench and squat multiple times a week. I was getting double servings of anabolic goodness without the need for any special sauce, if you get the metaphor. Focusing primarily on compound lifts gave me the most bang for my buck and provided me with functional benefits outside of just the gym. As a rugby player, I improved my sprint speed and power going into contact, and training this way made the concept of progressive overload easier to work out because my training was a lot more simple. When I was doing 5 exercises for my shoulders alone, working out the total volume was nowhere near as easy. And by the time I was on my 4th or 5th exercise, I was so fatigued that the weights I was using were becoming negligible and providing less and less of a beneficial stimulus. That's why I now call it junk volume. What I failed to appreciate when I was watching these bodybuilders online in my teens was that these were elite lifters with large amounts of muscle mass, often taking even larger amounts of anabolic steroids. They could tolerate and recover from much greater training volumes per session than my relatively amateur £175 natty self ever could. And if bodybuilding is your job, it doesn't matter that each progressive exercise you do is having less and less benefit. You are literally a professional who's chasing the small margins. So of course you can get even bigger and stronger doing compound lifts and all the extra exercises or junk volume I chose to drop. Progressive overload and a decent diet is all you need to get stronger and bigger. I did continue to do some occasional accessory work. I had shoulder problems after rugby, so spent particular effort working on the muscles of my rotator cuff. And yeah, if I had some spare time, I'd even throw in the occasional set of curls or lateral raises. And as a result, I'd throw myself a cute wink if I caught my eye in the mirror with a pump on. I don't want to demonise these accessories or isolation lifts. They're a means to an end. It's just with the law of diminishing returns, I figured out I was more bothered about grabbing the low-hanging fruit. So why, in 2024, are so many people still avoiding the main compound lifts? I mean, most people bench or do barbell rows, but how many people do you see in the gym working towards progressive overload with their deadlift or squat? Well, when I was in that position as a teenager, I didn't know how else I should be training. And also, squats and deadlifts were hard. By the time I was regularly squatting over 300 pounds even as my lightest working weight, I would often be intimidated by the session I had ahead of me. But I also have to face up to the fact that maybe a lot of people out there just don't want to do them. They enjoy working out the way they do, and that's fine, each to their own. I get that not everybody wants to be a powerlifter. They're an odd bunch. What I hope comes across regardless of your ability to put on a leotard and listen to heavy metal, is that by focusing on compound lifts in your training, you are likely to simplify your workouts and notice huge benefits. And as I mentioned before, compounds are highly functional. A back squat will undoubtedly improve your ability to jump further or sprint faster. Not just because you've got highly explosive quadriceps, but because of your ability to link together the power from your quads with that of your hamstrings, glutes and core. One of the drivers behind me starting to take my weight training more seriously was this functional component, to help my performance as a rugby player at university. But I mucked up my shoulder bad enough to end my mediocre rugby career. So then I was weight training for the sake of weight training, and it was fun for a while. But by the time I did my last powerlifting competition in November 2019, I was no longer a beginner or intermediate lifter. I totaled 572.5 kilograms at just over 86 kilograms body weight, which puts me way past advanced and on the cusp of being an elite lifter. Compound lifts were still the foundation of my training, but as I got more advanced, I needed to introduce accessory compound movements to work on weak points in my lifts. And my training volume had swollen so much, I was back to 2-hour training sessions 5 times a week. To take the next step and keep progressing would have meant a further huge commitment in time and energy. So when in December 2019 I had shoulder surgery, followed by the pandemic and entering full-time work as a doctor, it was a perfect storm and I lost a lot of strength and muscle mass. I wasn't sure if it was worth the effort to get it back. I floated for a couple of years, kind of half-heartedly lifting, but without the consistency or commitment I used to have before. But what I realised was that I'd moved on, or at least my priorities had changed. I no longer wanted to be a toned beefcake, more a lean runner bean. My focus shifted to prioritising my own health and longevity as an athlete, and more importantly I wanted to enjoy my training again. Long story short, I'm now training for a marathon, but in finding running, I was able to strip back my lifting once again to the basics, and start enjoying it again. Although highly functional, heavy compound lifts don't have amazing carryover to long distance running, and I can't expect to tolerate the training volumes of an elite powerlifter and runner at the same time, even with all the special sauce in the world. But I still enjoy the sport of powerlifting. Despite getting fitter and building my aerobic endurance, I'm still able to make steady strength gains, and I'm holding on to decent amounts of muscle mass. And that seems like a decent trade-off, even if I do get the occasional mean comment. Hybrid training may not be the best way to work solely for performance as a runner or weightlifter, but it is almost certainly the best way to train for my health and longevity. Everyone knows the health benefits of aerobic exercise as you age, but weight training into your later years can improve your balance, your bone density, limit muscle wasting associated with old age, and help you to live independently for longer. So this is just how I train and what I've learned in my 10+ years of working out. But the only thing I'm an expert in is myself. I don't want to pretend the path I took was the only way. So if your goal is to increase the circumference of your arms, go for it. And if you want to become your own toned beefcake, I hope I've inspired you. But right now I want to hear what your training looks like. Have you had a similar experience to me, or are you on a different path? And if you want to hear more about my current training and what I'm eating to get me there, well maybe this next video is for you. But otherwise, I'll see you again next time.